Shalom, this is Daniel Stern coming at you from the Netivyah Bible Instruction Ministry building in downtown Jerusalem. And there has been so much news lately that I'm going to shelve all of the stuff that I wanted to say about the International Criminal Court and about Lebanon and about Gaza and about UNRWA and about Yemen and the Houthis and lots of other stuff. And we're going to focus today on Iran because, of course, on Saturday morning, the Israeli Air Force launched a major retaliatory strike on Iran. This strike came after in the beginning of October, the Iranians launched over 200 ballistic missiles towards Israel, and unfortunately there was a casualty. Fortunately, he was someone from the Gaza Strip who was illegally in Jericho, but whatever. Death is death, and it's sad. It's just a bit ironic that the only casualty of the Iranian attack was Gazan in Jericho. But that's saying, let's talk about what Israel did. So for the last 3.5 weeks, Israel was saying, we'll retaliate, we'll show them who's boss. In the meantime, there was a drone strike on Bibi Netanyahu, the prime minister's residence in Caesarea. No one was hurt. Some property damage, but that again was attributed to Hezbollah and Iran, an assassination attempt, and all the more it strengthened the need for a response against Iran. So, Saturday morning, around 2:33 a.m., there was the first of two strikes of over 100 Israeli aircraft that flew about 1,600 kilometers to Iran and bombed 20 targets. In addition, along the way, they also attacked targets in Syria and in Iraq. We'll get there in a moment. And when I woke up and saw the news, I felt quite disappointed, as did many Israelis, because this felt like such a limited and weak and pathetic response after Iran not only bombed us with 200 missiles in the beginning of October, but for the last year has been funding and orchestrating the wars that we've been fighting, and of course for decades longer, whether it's the 1990 whatever 2-3 Buenos Aires embassy bombing, or whether it's supporting the Hamas and Hezbollah for decades and arming them. Basically from 79, when the Iranian Revolution happened, Iran has been saying death to Israel, death to America. So, many of us, myself included, wanted a much more powerful attack. I mean, for years now we've been talking about the nuclear threat that Iran could pose in the future, and this was our opportunity to take them out. Just like we took out Saddam's nuclear reactor in 1980, and we took out the Syrian nuclear reactor in 2007, and so on and so forth. So we were hoping that finally here's our chance, we'll take it out. Since, of course, nothing else is stopping them, so we, the Israeli public, are of the opinion that Israel has to do this to save itself from a situation where Iran goes nuclear. That's not what happened. Then, I would have expected, the Israeli public would have expected, well then, let's destroy their oil fields, their oil refineries. We'll cripple them economically so they can't arm themselves, so they can't arm the Hezbollah, so they can't fund their terrorist groups like the Houthis and the Iraqis and so on and so forth. Let's cripple them financially. Well, that didn't happen either. Oh well. What did Israel do? Well, people who are much smarter than me made the decisions. They may be right, they may be wrong, but they're much smarter than me and they have a much wider view of the situation. So we'll give them the benefit of the doubt, despite the fact that I woke up feeling disappointed that we hadn't done a more serious strike. Let's see what we did do. Well, from what I understand, there are two components for what the Israel Air Force IAF struck. First, we struck their missile defense systems, their radars, their S-300s, and even an S-400, which Russia is lauded as the best missile defense system in the world. Well, we took it out without any problem. Also, that's what we attacked in Syria and in Iraq as well, the air defense systems, in order to allow for the safe passage of our planes. Might I note that all the planes returned safely. So, in any case, we took out these air defense systems, the S-300, the S-400, and at least one major radar system, which, of course, means that in any future operation, if there ever will be one, and can't say I don't want there to be more, then we have the ability. Give us the leeway and the freedom to do anything we need to do, and we prove to them that their systems can't handle us, and that we have very good intelligence on their systems. So that's one aspect. This was taken out their defense, showing superiority, and given us freedom for future operations. The second component was taken out. I heard that there was one drone base attacked. I'm not sure. Let's say there was, let's say there wasn't. It's not a big deal, even though the drones are quite annoying. It's not a big deal. We'll put that aside. The main offensive component that was attacked, the first is defensive, the second is offensive, is the factories that produce the solid propellant, the fuels for their ballistic rockets. And they had 12 machines that produce this fuel, and all 12 of them were destroyed. Each one of them is estimated value of $20 million, and will take about a year to get a new one from China. And without that component, it will be very, very challenging for them to produce the propellant needed to send ballistic missiles to Israel. So that's an important strike at their offensive capabilities. For the last year, we've decimated the Hamas forces. We've taken out the Hezbollah leadership and many of their forces. We are slowly peeling back the layers, like an onion, of the Hamas's threat capability to Israel. For years, Israel was terrified by its own leftist media and by others of going to war with Hezbollah because they'll rain down thousands of missiles every day and there'll be thousands of casualties. Well, those doomsday prophecies have not come to pass. Israel has successfully dismantled the Hamas. Israel is well on its way to dismantling the Hezbollah, also financially, also leadership, also its missile supplies. Obviously, there are casualties on both sides, and casualties are tragic, I am aware, but there were also casualties on October 7th that could have been avoided had Israel done this earlier, and that's life. There's no perfect world, there's no utopia. If you don't stand up to evil, evil will still come and find you. Continuing, what else, going back to Iran, what else did Israel strike besides the factory that creates the propellant fuel and the 12 major machines that produce it? Well, we also struck some missile warehouses that had ballistic missiles that could have been used and launched to Israel. So, basically, let me add another thing. All of these strikes were done on military targets. As I said, they didn't attack the refineries, they didn't attack any symbols of the governmentship and the leadership. All of these targets were military targets. Now, why is that important? That's important because it allows Iran to deny the damage, to downplay the damage, to say it wasn't a big deal, and in so to not force their hand to respond in a way that they would have to if if their own countrymen, if their own citizens were to push them to respond because they were to see the damage. I just heard today that they set a 10-year prison sentence for anyone who shares movies about these attacks. They don't want the information to be shared. Now, obviously, if there was no damage, there wouldn't be any reason to restrict that information. But the fact that they restrict it and they limit it allows them to deny it, and as so, choose to respond or not to respond according to their wishes and not be pushed into it. We will see how they respond, if they respond. I'm sure there'll be some response, but we'll see what it is and what Israel does about it, if anything. But that's the situation. Obviously, the West, whether it's our European allies or our allies of the United States, have pushed Israel to respond in a very limited fashion. And in fact, that's what happened. But even though it was limited, it was very precise and hopefully very impactful. So, that's my information for you about the Israeli retaliatory strike on Iran. If you have any questions, if you have any thoughts, if you have any counterpoints, please share them with us. I'd like to have a debate. This isn't one-sided, even though it feels that way when I'm the only one speaking and you're the guys listening. But you can comment below and write your thoughts. Keep praying for the situation. I didn't go into it today because there's so much more to talk about. But just so you know, there were terrorist attacks today. There are soldiers who died today. There's a lot of stuff going on, and I'll try to get some of that out to you later in this week. In the meantime, pray for Israel, pray for the leadership, pray for our soldiers. Do what you can to support Israel, share the news, and God bless you all.